All right, folks, welcome to today's press conference. My name's Sean Van Diver. I am the president and founder of AfghanEvac, an organization that helps our wartime allies um, and get to the American dream that they've sought. Let me pull up my talking points here. So the way this is going to work is for the first few minutes, we'll do a welcome and some framing. I'll share some pertinent facts with you, a quick case overview. I'm going to turn it over to Syed's attorney, Brian McGoldrick, who's also on the call. Also available to us today are Afghan Evac Chief Communications Officer Jessica Bradley Rushing, who used to work at the Coordinator for Afghan Relocation Efforts as the comms director there, and uh, uh, Meredith Owen Edwards from Refugee Council USA for broader context and all of that. Uh, Sorry, Jessica's trying to get in.
You said her name. I was looking around. Where is she?
Okay, here we go. Let me try to invite her. Okay, Jessica may or may not come. Uh, let's go back to these talking points here. So first, um, what we're sharing today is not just a troubling case, it's a warning signal, right? This is a big blaring siren. A man who served alongside the U.S. mission in Afghanistan for years and years and years, uh, who entered this country legally, right? This administration may not like CBP-1, but it was the legal mechanism that the last administration was using for folks who were seeking asylum and seeking help. He followed every rule. He has two pending case types that would provide durable status. He was detained in a U.S. courtroom last week on June 12th. And look, this isn't just a one-off. It fits a broader pattern that we've seen since day one of the administration. Roadblocks, rollbacks, quiet policy shifts that make it harder for our allies to get protection, even when they've done everything right, even when they make it to within spitting distance of the border. I've been down to the Latina Muslim Federation shelter in Tijuana during the Biden administration, and there were a litany of folks who made it all the way to our front doorstep. And because of bureaucratic bullshit, they couldn't get to the other side. We believe that this is a deliberate misuse of vague legal language to meet enforcement quotas, and you've all seen the video of his arrest. Um, the pertinent facts here are, let's talk a little bit about who Syed is, right? Syed was a U.S. affiliated, is a U.S. affiliated Afghan who worked as a translator and logistics contractor for American forces at several military bases, including Kandahar and Marmal Mazar. In September 2023, his wife went to a wedding and the Taliban stormed through, murdered his brother, forcing Syed and his family into hiding. He applied for a special immigrant visa just before that, and it's well before that, which remains pending. It's at Chief of Mission right now, and we validated all of that. To escape continued threats, Syed first fled to Iran, where he lived in precarious conditions. From there, he secured a humanitarian visa to Brazil, traveled there. He then made the treacherous overland journey on foot and by bus through the Darien Gap in Central America to Mexico. Once in Mexico, he waited for a CBP-1 appointment like he was told to do by the United States government and legally entered the United States at the San Ysidro port of entry in July of 2024. That's 10 minutes from my house. He was granted humanitarian parole and complied with all legal requirements. Syed has no criminal record. He does have a pending SIV, and he has an active asylum case. His brother was already granted asylum in the U.S. just weeks before Syed's court appearance, with the same set of facts. So what happened on June 12th? He appeared for his first scheduled master calendar hearing in San Diego. The U.S. government surprisingly moved to dismiss his case on the grounds that his notice to appear was improvidently issued without any explanation. After that hearing, ICE agents arrested him in the courthouse hallway, even as he was explaining his service to the U.S. military. He followed every instruction, met every obligation, and he's had been preparing for this day. He wants to get uh, his American dream started. There's a full like set of facts that you can go see in the press kit, which we'll share afterward. But look, the broader message before I turn it over to Brian is that this isn't about law and order, right? It's about bureaucracy cracking under pressure and using shortcuts to detain people who did everything right. The American people deserve transparency, and our Afghan allies deserve dignity. Stephen Miller setting a quota of 3,000 deportations a day or detentions a day shouldn't make an impact on our Afghan allies, but it is. Since this administration took office, we've watched a troubling pattern take shape. CBP 1 has been turned into CBP Home, a self deportation tool. Humanitarian parole requests aren't being adjudicated now with the visa ban. Follow to join has been paused. Refugee referrals have been paused. Legal pathways have been narrowed or defunded. Enduring welcome has been shut down. Care is being eliminated. And now, even when someone follows the rules, shows up on time, and builds a case in good faith, they're detained. What happened to Syed is not the beginning. It's just the most recent and most visible moment in a long line of quiet decisions designed to make it harder for our allies to reach safety. And frankly, this is just what we know. We have no idea how many others this has happened to in silence. I'm going to turn it over now to my friend, my new friend, and Syed's attorney, Brian McGoldrick. And I'm going to spotlight Brian here.
Uh-oh. Well, it's good to know that I'm your new friend, Sean. That makes me happy. Thank you, everybody, for being here. I want to start first by saying thank you to all of the volunteers that have suddenly showed up in the courthouse in San Diego. The only reason that we have this video is because a small group of volunteers are just coming every day to the San Diego courthouse, and they wait in the hallway along with all the ICE agents to video what's happening, to document what's happening. And as you can see in the video, to yell at the ICE officers and demand that they start following the rules. As Sean mentioned, yeah, my client entered on, when did he enter? On July 5th of 2024. He had his CBP-1 appointment. He had waited in Mexico until he got his appointment and presented himself at the San Ysidro Port of Entry, and was paroled into the United States and also given a notice to appear. He was initially set, he gave them a Chicago address, so he was initially set in Chicago. We had to, then he came and saw me. We had his case moved to San Diego. Because at the time, cases were moving rather quickly here in San Diego. In some parts of the country, cases take years to get to a merits hearing, but I can get a merits hearing here in 2 or 3 months. So we were preparing his case. We had everything filed, his 589, all of his supporting documents, plenty of declarations from family and friends. And we were ready to go to the master calendar hearing. But about 2 weeks, about a week and a half before that, we started seeing some of these really shocking videos of people walking out of the courtroom and being shackled, dragged down the hall, down to the basement of the building, and put into detention and expedited removal. So we had actually met a few days prior and talked about what could possibly happen, what his rights were. He didn't have to identify himself when we left the courtroom. He had the right to remain silent, that ICE has the obligation to identify who it is they're trying to arrest. We went to the hearing, and right after the hearing got started, counsel for the government said that they were making a motion to dismiss. And she said that the grounds for dismissal was 239.2A6, which is that the NTA was improvidently issued. Usually they choose A7, that there's been a change in circumstances such that that it's not in the government's best interest to prosecute the case anymore. But in this case, she just said it was improvidently issued. And the court asked me, well, what's your response to that, Mr. McGoldrick? My first question was, well, what the hell does improvidently issued mean, right? So I said, Your Honor, I think the government needs to tell us what was improvident. What happened that they're now asserting that this was improvidently issued? Almost a year after the NTA was issued, right? Suddenly, oh, it's improvident. And to my surprise, the government counsel said, we don't have to explain why it's improvident. We just have to make the allegation. The government has nothing further to say on the issue. So that took me a little off guard. So I just was having a discussion with the judge that, what does this mean? That there was nothing improvident about it, that this happens, that this NTA was issued like every other NTA for someone that comes in through CBP. It's just standard. And the judge very graciously said, well, look, they've just made the motion today. According to the Immigration Court Practice Manual, you have 10 days to respond to the motion. So I'm not going to grant the motion to dismiss. You have 10 days to file a brief, your opposition. I will rule on that. And then she said, in case you're successful, let's go ahead and set this case for an asylum hearing. And she gave us a merits hearing date for September. And then we got up and we walked out the door. And if you've seen the video, you know what happened next. We were first because pro bono counsel is usually allowed to be first. So I don't think ICE was ready for us. We walked out the door, and we walked out the door with some of the volunteers. So we were sort of in a little group. They like to help escape. Hopefully, there's this hope that you're going to escape and get to the elevator in time. So we were walking down the hall, because normally I see them, they just grab somebody as soon as they come out the door. And Syed, he didn't respond. He did nothing to acknowledge that they were saying his name. Then they ran in front of us, sort of swarmed us, and started demanding, what's your name? What's your name? Then they asked me for documents. I knew that if I handed them any documents, that was going to identify who he was, and then their job was done. So I said, I have no documents for you. And then they keep asking him. They were not going to let us pass. And finally, the one ICE agent says, let's take him. It's him, let's take him, I think is what he says. And then I asked for the warrant. They wouldn't show me the warrant. You can hear the observers start yelling at the ICE agents. And they're doing their best to get away from the observers. So we go down the hall, and I'm so happy that Syed, he speaks English really well. And Syed immediately just turns to the cameras and just starts stating his case. I'm an ally. I worked with the US. I never thought I'd be treated like this when I came to the United States. And then we were led down to the secure area. Still never shown a warrant. They take him in the secure area. I was not allowed in. About 15 minutes later, someone came out and gave me a copy of what they say was the warrant they had. Um, and the video, then I went out and did a little interview, and the videographer put it together, put it on Instagram, and it's gone crazy. Um, it's really shocking what's happening in the courthouse in San Diego, and around the country. It's happening in courtrooms around the country. You walk down the hall, and it's like you're walking down Executioner's Row. You know, there's all of these armed personnel, just they're eyeballing everybody as we come down, and they're just watching you, and it's just so intimidating. And they're the clients are terrorized. It was terrorizing to me the first couple times I saw it, you know, and I'm a citizen. But it's just meant to intimidate. And now people are just not even showing up. They're so frightened by this. Um, this using the okay, just using the improvidently issued excuse to dismiss is, as Sean has said, really just a tool for them to take anybody they want and put them into removal. So Sean, should we take some questions?
Let's can you give a couple quick examples of other irregularities that you've seen?
Well, so I was in court yesterday. I had two hearings yesterday, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. You know, we have no idea who they're selecting. So yesterday morning, I had prepped another Afghan client that this is what's going to happen. We went in, it was the same attorney for the government. Nobody, no motion to dismiss. Everybody was able to continue their cases. There were plenty of single people that had been here less than 2 years that qualify uh, for removal. Nothing happened to him. In the afternoon, a single guy immediately motion to dismiss. As soon as he walked out the door, he was grabbed by ICE. And then now I haven't seen this, but now they're even dismissing families. There was a Venezuelan family that they made a motion to dismiss. We were all just shocked because ICE was outside the door, and we couldn't believe that they were actually going to take a family. It turns out they didn't take the family. But we have no idea what's going to happen. I'm sure you've seen one of the first videos of an Iranian man who walks out the door. He's grabbed by ICE. They're trying to shackle him, and his attorney's repeatedly asking, "Where? Show me the warrant. Show him." When they finally show him the warrant, he says, "This warrant's for another person. This isn't even the right person." And you're just grabbing them, and they had shoved this guy to the ground. Two officers on top of him. He wasn't even the right person. And as I recall, they even take him all the way downstairs to lock up, and then realize that they have the wrong person, and he's released. Just some examples of what's happening. And this is just San Diego. And these are just the cases where we have video and we know it's happening.
Thank you, Brian. I want to open the floor up for any other questions. You can ask questions of me, of Brian. Meredith Owen Edwards is here from Refugee Council USA. And as I mentioned earlier, Jessica Bradley Rushing is here, formerly of the Coordinator for Afghan Relocation Efforts, now with AfghanEvac. Happy to answer any questions. I'm going to put all four of us up on the screen. And you can either use your hand, raise your hand function, or just start asking questions. Go ahead, Michelle. You're on mute.
Unmute. Okay, so I have two questions, if it's okay. I'm curious, how have any Afghan allies been deported back to Afghanistan under this administration? And do we know how many Afghan allies have been detained?
I'm going to take that one to start, and then Meredith, if you want to jump back in, or Jessica, if you know. So the truth is that we don't know, right? We don't know how many Afghan allies have been detained. We know that congressional offices are asking those questions. In fact, we have a congressional briefing for this case later today. Number two, we don't know if any have been deported. We know that Afghans have opted to leave. We
Mhm.
don't know if any have been deported yet. Um, but we know that they're getting scary emails from ICE saying, you better leave. In fact, inaccurate, like emails they weren't supposed to get.
Mhm.
They've gone to some people who had Operation Allies Welcome Parole who were supposed to be exempt from this. And look, the difference here is there's folks who arrived that were brought here by the government on Operation Allies Welcome Parole, right? That's during the evacuation. They then got reparole, or maybe they got TPS, or maybe they got some other protection. They've applied for asylum. They're awaiting their SIV. And each of those things, except for awaiting SIV, offers some protection. But the federal government is now deconstructing each leg of that protection. They're taking away CBP 1 parole. They gave people a week's notice. What they didn't say is if you have a pending asylum case or something happening in the courts, you can wait until that's done. They're not telling people the whole story. They've taken away TPS, which expires July 14th. Um, and if you don't have parole or don't have TPS, and you haven't applied for asylum, then you have no more protection. You can't work here anymore. You're going to become homeless. If you do have an asylum claim, and you have to request a work permit, and I think it's 130 or 180 days after you've applied for asylum. Um, and then there are just these erroneous messages that have been going out to them from the government that say, "Get out! You're not welcome here anymore." And it's just unconscionable to me, especially for the folks that don't have an attorney, how scary that must be. You were sold this idea, an American dream. You were sold this idea that you come here to the land of opportunity, you get to buy a house, get a job. If you work hard and do the right thing, you're going to succeed in America. And that's just disappearing before our very eyes. Um, so we don't have solid answers on that, Michelle. I would encourage every journalist here to ask uh, congressional offices and ICE, CBP, DHS, USCIS, all of them. Meredith, do you have more that you can offer on that?
I plus one the point of directly asking the administration and federal agencies these questions. What I wanted to point your attention to is that the State Department has reportedly begun drawing down up to $250 million of its migration and refugee assistance budget that is supposed to go toward humanitarian assistance and displacement assistance and refugee processing and refugee resettlement, and instead reallocating those resources to repatriation. I'm not able to answer a question of how much of that has been drawn down for that purpose, nor what are the nationalities and which countries are people being repatriated to. Inquiry to the federal government would be helpful. I would also point your attention to the State Department's notice to Congress that it intends to rename the Bureau of Population, Refugees, and Migration at the State Department. PRM is in charge of administering the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program and providing foreign assistance and displacement assistance overseas, to rename it the Office of Remigration, a harmful term that is an indicator of refouling people back to the very violence and persecution that they fled. So these are all indicators of worsening harm that's to come.
Yeah.
What's it? The Office of what?
Remigration.
Thank you.
So one other point around that, just to set the scene for you all. There remain 1,500 Afghans, 300 in the SIV pathway and 1,200 in the refugee pathway. Um, stuck on a US-run facility in Qatar. And PRM is supposed to be helping those folks, but they have no answers for them. You all get our emails, so I'm sure you've seen that. Um, uh, yeah. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Hey, thanks for having this. One question for Brian. If you can talk a little bit about what is the status of your client right now? He's in detention and kind of what happens from going forward. And then also for everyone else, I'm trying to get some clarity on, people who are either on the people who are in the US, either on the SIV pathway or had already applied for asylum and gotten asylum and are sort of on the next step, which would be like applying for a green card or getting trying to then, go towards citizenship, if they are that far along. Are those processes still, are they stalled? Do you have any insight into what is going on with that?
Sure. Let's go to Brian first, and then we'll answer that. No, it's
So I actually visited Syed. He's at the Otay Mesa Detention Center. I went on Sunday night. I spent about an hour with him. He was very excited to have a visitor, as you can imagine. And we talked a lot about what is happening. He was very happy to find out that all of this was all the whole social media thing was blowing up. It was kind of emotional for me when he said, I never knew that in America I'd be put in a room where I have to sleep in the same room where I go to the bathroom. He he's really, really disappointed about how he's being treated, as you can imagine. He was expecting a lot more. He knows what's happening legally, and he knows to keep advocating for that credible fear interview. He's been given a document that says that they recognize that he deserves a credible fear interview, but he hasn't had it yet. And I think they're going to wait until after the motion to dismiss is decided, because he's not actually in expedited removal right now. He's still in 240 regular removal proceedings until this motion to dismiss is actually decided.
Thank you, Brian. Meredith, do you want to take the other question, or shall I? Okay. So for a while they had paused the processes for green cards and all of the immigration processes. We understand that for folks who've been granted asylum and for just broader green card processing, we understand that it's slowly been restarted, but I haven't seen a lot of evidence of that. We don't have good answers on that. What I know is that what we're seeing is that the resources that were allocated toward helping people enter or helping process entries have mostly been wound down and focus on getting people out.
My OAW clients are still, we're filing 485s, adjustments of status, and they're getting notices of receipt. Some of them are actually starting to get interviews again. The real problem that we see for the OAW Afghans is just the stall with the follow to join families, right? So I have clients that had interviews at the beginning of January and haven't heard a peep from Islamabad since.
Yeah, the follow to join cases, what we understand following the visa ban, for those who are tracking that was issued a couple weeks ago. I actually just got this confirmed from a senior State Department official this morning that the interviews are happening for follow to join. The processing is happening, but they're being placed into administrative processing per USCIS until they figure out what to do. So
May I add to that, Sean?
Yeah, please do.
We understand the in terms of for follow to join refugees, and follow to join asylees. I just wanted to offer some nuanced interpretation from RCUSA and some of our members. It is our position that the travel visa ban should not apply to refugees or follow to join refugees or I-730s. That being said, of course, refugees are subject to the refugee ban executive order that is still in place with vanishingly few arrivals pursuant to PACITO litigation and court intervention, in addition to some self-travelers for Afghan SIVs and I-730s. Whereas it is our interpretation that follow to join asylees could be impacted by the travel visa ban. I will also offer for press to remain vigilant and submit inquiries directly to the federal government, as we are deeply concerned that at every turn the administration will seek to prevent refugee and follow to join refugees from entering the United States, and robustly processing their cases. So planting.
And remember that refugees, as Meredith was saying, are not impacted at all by the visa ban. It's not that they're exempt. It's not that they're allowed. They're not like it just doesn't apply. The reason refugees can't come unless they're South African white farmers is that the president signed on January 20th Executive Order 14163. And Executive Order 14163 says that no refugees can come here. It's on a 90-day cycle of reports that go to Stephen Miller, and this will shock you all. Stephen Miller, it seems, doesn't believe that the United States Refugee Admissions Program is good for national security, which I don't know if we could have predicted that. It is. That's why refugees can't come. I'm not going to editorialize beyond that. We're going to go to Rebecca and then Hannah. If you still want to ask a question, you can come after Rebecca, and then we'll go to, was it David?
All right, thank you for doing this. I've got a few questions about Syed, but hopefully they'll be quick answers so you can indulge me. So the brothers that were mentioned, both the one who was granted asylum and the one who was murdered, did they also work for the US military? Did the wife who was mentioned, is she in the United States as well? And if so, how is she doing? And then, as was alluded to, there were these notices that went to all CBB1 users or most CBB1 users telling them to self-deport. Did Syed get one of those? You're muted.
The brothers all worked together in a company that they owned called Mahdi International. And so all of them had the same facts in terms of working with the US military. My client probably spoke English the best of the three, so he also was employed periodically as a translator. That was question one. What was question two?
Is the wife here?
No, the Syed's family fled to another country with him, and they're in hiding in another country. You're asked how she's doing. It was according to his brother Hassan, she found out he was in detention by seeing the video, because the video is now all over Afghanistan as well.
And then the CBB1 notice.
Yeah, he did. He got the email. I don't remember when, but he got the email, and he also got. They sent out a separate that first email told him that your parole is being terminated and your right to work is going to end in 10 days. I think it said. I didn't review that before this, but then there was a lot of pushback on that, and not giving proper notice. And so they actually sent out a more explicit email or text to everybody telling them when their work authorization was going to expire. And what I've been doing, because that's work authorization based on parole, so that's a C11 work authorization. So from the get-go, I have always tried to get my clients off that, and as soon as they're eligible for C8, which is work authorization pursuant to their asylum application, to get them on that right away. So we had actually just applied for Syed for C8 when he was taken.
Thank you so much. Next, we're going to go. Rebecca, does that answer all of your questions?
That does. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I'm going to lower your hand. There we go. James, we're going to go, instead of to you next, we're going to go to Hannah. She had her hand up before. Go to Hannah. Then we're going to go to, was it David? And then we'll come to you, James. Go ahead, Hannah.
Hi, thank you so much. I just have a couple quick clarifying questions. The first is which agency paroled him initially into the US and assigned him the NTA?
And Hannah, what outlet are you from?
I'm from CBS News, sorry.
Wonderful. Thank you.
That's a good question.
It would have been CBP.
Yeah, CBP.
Okay, perfect. And then the hearing, just to confirm where he was detained, that was about his asylum case?
Well, the hearing, he's in removal proceedings. So it was a hearing pursuant to his removal proceedings. And our defense against being removed was that he has an asylum application. So it was the first sort of status conference on his documents so that we could set him for an asylum hearing.
And to explain sort of like how it goes is somebody would present at the border, in this case with a CBP1 appointment, the government approved way of doing this legally. And they would say, hey, I'm here, I'm seeking asylum. CBP would issue a notice to appear saying you have to come to court because you're not really admissible here, but we're going to let you pop in for now. So it's normal to receive the notice to appear and be like, correct me if I'm wrong, Ryan, but you essentially get put into removal proceedings when you arrive, and then somebody would apply for asylum, or you would get your SIV, or some other status would be conferred upon you, and you could normalize status here. So he's not like being in removal proceedings isn't a bad thing. It's the normal course of business for how he arrived.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Got it. And then just one more clarifying question. Just any dates that you have that you could provide of when he left for Brazil and how long he was in Mexico before his appointment and when he got the notice to show up for court would be great.
I think that's going to be in your packet.
It'll be in the packet, and I do think, Brian, it would be helpful for people to understand he arrived at San Isidro, but his case was assigned in Texas. Can you tell us why his case was assigned in Texas and then he got the venue switch?
So to answer your question, he arrived in Brazil in April of 2024. When you present yourself at for the appointment, you have to give them an address of someone you know and where you're going to go to stay when you first arrive. And he had a friend in Chicago, and he gave the Chicago address, and that's why his court was set in Chicago. And when you see his NTA initially, because Chicago is so backlogged, his first hearing was set for September of 2027 in Chicago. And then so he went there. He thought he had to go there. He went there for a brief while and realized he didn't want to spend the winter in Chicago, so he came to San Diego. And then I met him, and we moved his case to San Diego, and proceeded from there.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Next, we're going to go to David.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. And what outlet are you with, David?
CBS 8 News in San Diego.
Wonderful.
My question is, you had mentioned that they did give you a warrant after his arrest in the hallway. Was that what kind of warrant was that? Was it signed by a judge? Was it an administrative warrant? Did it have his name on the warrant? And
It was.
Go ahead.
It was an administrative warrant. It did have his name and his A number on it.
So that means it was not signed by a judge, right?
That's correct.
So any one of those agents could have just filled out that warrant with no judicial review, correct?
Well, I would never accuse a government agent of doing that, but I was just left standing in the hallway for 15 minutes, and then someone appeared with this warrant.
Does it have an affidavit on the warrant?
No, but it is signed by an officer.
An
So-
ICE officer.
Let's see. Yeah, SDDO. Yeah, an authorized immigration officer.
Okay, and then just another clarification. Once the case is dismissed and they go into so-called expedited removal, I've seen reports that they don't have a right to an attorney if they're in expedited removal. Is that correct, or how do you take that?
Yes, that is correct. And it happened so fast that they couldn't get an attorney if they wanted one anyway. You know, normally if you're put in expedited removal, they're looking to get you out in just a couple days. So what's really, I think, more important is that they don't have to ask you if you're afraid to return to your country of origin anymore. You have the migrant has to affirmatively on their own express a fear of returning. And that's what triggers the required credible fear interview. But if the migrant doesn't themselves affirmatively express, I am afraid to return to my country, they're never asked and they're just shipped.
So I understand your client's case has not been dismissed yet, but once it's dismissed, he could be removed without you even knowing about it then?
Well, I guess that's a possibility. You're not hopeful about me overcoming the motion to dismiss, it sounds, David.
Okay.
But no, if it is dismissed, he's already expressed his desire for a credible fear interview. And I've seen the document. He was given a document that says, we recognize that you've expressed fear of returning home and you will have a credible fear interview.
Okay,
So he couldn't be deported until he has the credible fear interview and he fails. I don't know how he would fail the credible fear interview, but that's what would have to happen.
just final question. Does he have kids out of the country with his wife?
He has a wife and 2 children. Yes.
How old are the kids?
Oh my gosh. I don't know off the top of my head, David. I'd have to search around for that.
That's okay.
We'll add that. We'll get that and we'll add it to the pertinent facts list.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, James, you've been very patient. James with Times of San Diego. Oh,
Thank you for taking my question.
There you
Yeah, I'd like to know a little bit more about the motion you're going to submit to challenge the motion to dismiss the case. Where does that? You must have a week left. So, what's the procedure with that? And do you think there's a chance to overcome it?
So it's not a motion on my part. It's just a response. My opposition to the government's motion to dismiss. I'm hopeful. I don't think don't think the government's position of saying that it was improvident and we don't have to explain why is going to really hold water with this judge. My research so far, I mean, just from a practical position, I'm gonna, I went and got Black's Law Dictionary and looked up what's the word improvident mean, so they're alleging that some sort of mistake happened, that they mistakenly issued this notice to appear, which is ludicrous. It was issued in a standard fashion, the way they're issued for everyone. So there was no mistake, and that I said this even in court. I just said, Your Honor, this is just a ruse. They just want to put this person in expedited removal, and this is just something they're making up to use. And she smiled and said, well, you can put that in your response. But that's that. So yes, I have 10 days. So it's actually the 10th day is a Sunday. So I think I have until Monday, but I'll have it filed by the end of the week. And I have a few colleagues that we're all doing the research just to find out what's the Ninth Circuit have to say about something being improvidently issued.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Brian. All right. Does that answer all your questions, James?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right. The one and only Beth Bailey.
Oh, wow. That's a lot. So I guess I had misunderstood, and I thought that they were talking about parole had been improvidently issued, because that's been a huge topic among Afghans since the CBP One app parole revocation started rolling out via letter. So that's not what they're saying, correct? They're saying that the notice to appear was improvidently issued.
Yes, because it's the notice to appear that initiates the removal process. So
Okay.
that's the charging document
Okay.
that put him in front of an immigration judge.
Okay. So then my other question is, because so many, I mean, obviously this is vastly important to, to Sayed and his family, but there are so many Afghans in similar situations who are terrified right now. And so I want to understand, if he had had a C8, would that have protected him more? Would he have been given that layer? Because I've been told from lawyers who are involved in these cases that if you have an asylum in process, if you have SIV in process, you're supposed to be protected. He had the SIV in process, but coming through the southern border then can be a wonky thing with SIV, from what I've been led to understand. So can you explain that to me, how those protections played into his case, so that we can better understand how others might be affected? And I want to say too, just out of goodness, I know that everyone's very worried right now. I covered a similar case earlier in the Trump administration when an individual had gone into a 1-year review for asylum. It was his 1-year check-in to try to get asylum. And he was detained by ICE for some time, but he is out now, and they were able to get him out. So there is hope, I think. But that was before all of the things have happened. So anyway, could you explain to me why SIV did not protect him from this? Why being so close to asylum, but maybe not having that C8, did not protect him?
Brian, I'm going to take this one to start, and then I'll toss to you for the lawyer stuff. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay. So a few things. SIV doesn't offer any protection. He's right now, even if he had COM approval, it doesn't offer any protection. Right now, his case is at COM. We've confirmed with COM that it's there. We know that, and just by nature of having an application in, it doesn't provide the same kind of protection that parole, TPS, or a pending asylum or court case provides, right? And the reason a pending asylum application or a court case provides protection is because clearly something's going on with this case that they're trying to get ultimate adjudication on. Now, what's happening in Syed's case is that he has parole that has been canceled, right? The CBP1 parole all got canceled. So that piece, that protection is gone. What protects him right now, the only thing that should be protecting him right now is the pending asylum case. Now, in court, the United States government said, we want to move to dismiss this case because the notice to appear was improvidently issued. He no longer has parole. The notice to appear was improvidently issued. We're just going to dismiss the whole case. If they dismiss the whole case, that means his asylum application is dismissed. Is that right, Brian?
That's correct.
So then they say, well, he doesn't have any protection. We can just get rid of him. So, and I think there is some confusion, especially among Afghans right now, that the SIV application provides protection. It provides nothing. Anybody, any Afghan, I'm not an immigration attorney, but if it were me, I would, if I were here, with TPS, with parole, with any sort of anything, if I didn't have an asylum application in, I would make sure I got one in as soon as possible. And to fill it out, I would contact the American Immigration Lawyers Association, which you can get to on AfghanEvac.org/resources. It is so important because that's what we're hearing from the administration, right? Caroline Leavitt from the podium, Kristi Noem from whatever cosplay she's doing. Every administration official is saying, apply for asylum, go through that. So, but it's important to show up with an attorney because they're pulling bullshit like this, right? Where they're saying that, you know, the NTA is improvidently issued. They're moving to dismiss these cases. It's a catch-22, and that's the trick, right? That's the trick that Stephen Miller and his friends are using right now. Is they're pointing at one thing that's still working. We have an SIV exemption in the visa ban, so we're taking care of Afghans. Well, bullshit. You're breaking down enduring welcome. You're dismissing all these cases. You're doing all of these things meant to make it harder and scarier for immigrants, even immigrants who stood with us, who took life in our name. So, Beth, does that answer your question, or do you need more color from Brian?
Oh, I mean, Brian, if you have anything to add, that would be great. But I think that I understand better now. It's unfortunate, but I do. Thank you.
What Sean said.
Awesome. Thank
I think
you.
that means I'm a lawyer now, folks.
Not quite.
Hey, I had one more question if I could squeeze it in.
Please do.
There's a case filed recently in San Diego federal court by an attorney named Emily Howe. And it seeks class action regarding arrests by ICE agents, basically in the hallways and dismissing cases like this. Are you familiar with that? Is anyone joining in on that? I saw that it was, I think, an initial restraining order on the practice, and then also later seeking class action.
You know, David, I'm not aware of that. So I'll research that.
Yeah, I'm not tracking on it either, but I will be soon.
Is that HAO?
HAOE. I'll
Hey.
email you guys the case number.
Thanks. That'd be great, David.
All right. Any more questions from the press before we close out with our? I have closing remarks that I've prepared.
Shocking.
I know it is shocking. Yeah. All right. We're not seeing any more questions. It looks like. What did I say? So AfghanEvac has a statement up in the press packet. Look, we cannot allow this kind of bullshit to become the new normal. If this is how we treat a man with a badge from the U.S. military, a pending SIV, no criminal history, then the system is not broken. It's rigged. It's rigged by design. AfghanEvac is going to keep shining a bright light on these practices. Everyone on this call will receive redacted documents following today's briefing. We encourage you to share this story with your newsroom and with your colleagues. Those documents in the redacted packet, those are not for public distribution. They're meant for you to validate Syed is who he says he is. As developments occur in this case, we'll make sure to keep you posted. If you want to get in touch with us or with Brian, just reach out to contact@afghanevac.org, and we're happy to continue chatting with you. Brian's a very busy immigration attorney. He came out of retirement to handle Afghan cases, which I think makes him a saint. And you have me, Brian, Jessica, Meredith, and countless others. If you want to talk to Afghans who are impacted, not by this case, obviously things are moving here. But if you want to talk to Afghans who are impacted with family members, reach out. We're happy to get in touch. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I shared the packet in the chat, and I'm going to share it again here. I'm not saying the website address on purpose. If you're a journalist watching this afterwards, you can reach out to us and we'll give you the packet. There it is in the chat. And we hope to see you all soon. Brian, do you have anything else?
I just want to say thank you, everybody. And Beth and the reporter from the LA Times, I forgot your name. I'm sorry I haven't responded to your emails and your messages. I've just been overwhelmed.
There you go. Meredith, anything? Jessica, anything?
Nope. Thanks everyone for coming.
All right. If you have press questions, Jessica at AfghanEvac.org. She's a menace in the best way. All right. We'll talk to you all soon.